So again, Andrew King here, Editor-in-Chief, Canadian Musician Magazine. Thank you for joining us for Factor 101, Access Funding and Advance Your Career, the latest free music business webinar from NWC Webinars and Canadian Musician. Joining me this evening, and I'll introduce her in just a moment, Karina Moldovan from Factor, Communications and Stakeholder Relations Officer. And a little bit about Karina here. Well, as I just said, yeah, she's been with Factor for, I guess, coming on 3 years here. Does a lot of industry outreach. We're thrilled to have her in the hot seat this evening. As I mentioned earlier, though, she's part of an expansive and very, very effective team of project coordinators and other fine folks. So if you've got questions, again, you can head to Factor's website. A lot of the information that we're talking about this evening is there. There's also a breakdown of their board of directors and their team, so you can find if there's someone specific you're looking to contact. And yeah, again, my name's Andrew, Editor-in-Chief, Canadian Musician. Really quickly here, anyone that has logged in to attend the webinar this evening, we're going to do a draw at the end here, and basically, yeah, if you come in at any part during the session, you're going to automatically be entered to win. We're giving away a gift certificate, $50 from musicbooksplus.com, as well as a 5-year subscription to Canadian Musician. So we're reaching out to someone in the 24 hours following the session. Hopefully it's you. Karina, thank you everyone for the patience, and yeah, Karina, thanks a ton for joining us. Everything's good with you, I hope?
Yes, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant. We're thrilled to have you, and yeah, enough hearing from me. Let's jump in here. So we're going to just do a quick overview. The first half of the presentation is going to be basics about Factor, just to get you in the know. We'll do a short preliminary question round partway through. If we don't get to your question at that point, it'll be a short one, basically just for anything timely pertinent to something that we've talked about. If we don't get to it there, fear not, because we'll have a more substantial Q&A at the very end, and you can throw anything at us. If we have a bunch and can't get to them during the session here, both Karina and I will make our email addresses available, and yeah, she said that she's happy to help field any questions or give people a hand afterwards, which is very generous. So yeah, super. What is Factor? So we're going to walk through just the organization's mandate, the folks that fund Factor, and then ultimately who gets funded by Factor and the types of projects that fall under this. So yeah, Karina, take it away here, and you can fill us in on some of these basics.
So our mandate, as it says here, is generally to promote the growth of the entire Canadian music industry. That, of course, means artists themselves, as well as the various companies that all kind of create that foundation. A point I would usually like to make here for our mandate is that we do differ from an arts council, which means that Factor was formed with the purpose of promoting and creating sound recordings that are to be commercially viable. So that's the part that sometimes gets people a little bit confused. Even if your art is super great, we are looking for some kind of commercial viability.
Bingo. So then, yeah, as far as where the money that Factor has to give to artists and creators comes from.
Yeah, so we have, there's 2 streams. Of course, we are a government-funded foundation, and that comes from the Canadian Heritage Fund. That's about just under 50% of our funding, and then the rest of it comes from private radio broadcasters. So this means the Rogers and the Bell and the smaller radio stations. Every time they have profits, yearly profits that surpass a certain threshold, there's a certain percentage that they are mandated by the CRTC to give to Factor to, of course, put money back into the industry to, you know, fund the artists that they are then playing on the radio. So it's just kind of a cycle.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, as far as the artists, the creators, their team that gets funded, can you walk us through the types of folks that are eligible to take advantage of these various programs?
Yeah, so artists, of course, all genres, all across Canada. If you're an artist, you are eligible for something with Factor. And then in terms of music companies or music industry professionals, of course, artist managers, record labels, publishers, distributors, songwriters as well, and then event producers, That's a little bit more of a gray area, but we do have programs, including collective initiatives and sponsorship, that cater to the people that don't really fall into any of those categories and are looking to do something that provides a benefit to the industry as a whole.
Bingo. And then, yeah, I guess we'll get further into these specifics when we dissect the different programs and what they each entail. But as far as the types of things that Factor funds, can you give us the overview?
Yeah, so very wide range, but generally most programs cover our sound recording programs, because that's kind of the main thing that we're looking to output. And then to help usually promote that sound recording, there's marketing and promo, touring, showcasing, video, radio marketing is a very specific component we have as well. Usually any activity relating to like your album release cycle is something that Factor funds.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's jump in here. So yeah, some basics to get started. Yeah, Karina, I mentioned earlier that what we're talking about here, there are a few fresh changes to Factor and your various programs. Yeah, before we go in, how often is it, like, is it constant? Are things continually being changed and revised around the year, or are these more, do they kind of work in stages? Like, how often might these types of changes come into effect?
So the type of change that we are talking about, which is with profiles and eligibility, is fairly rare. I think this is the first time that this has changed since we implemented the online system in 2013. So we do surveys and we do listen to the complaints that people have and what they think, and we try to implement those, but sometimes it takes a little while. In terms of other changes like program stuff, that gets looked at twice a year. So we try to really keep up with, like, okay, streams are a thing now, so we want to make sure that that's updated and everything makes sense for the current climate. But yeah, in terms of this profile change that I'm going to talk about, it's a fairly big one and is very new and does not happen often.
Oh, there you go. We're excited to have you at the cusp of that change. And it's also cool, though, to know how just responsive and reactive you can be to shifts in the industry, considering how frequent those shifts seem to be. So yeah, getting back in here, basic eligibility criteria for Factor.
So you need to be Canadian, or if you're in a band and you have multiple people, at least half of you need to be Canadian. And that's pretty much it. You need to be a band. Even if you've never done anything ever and you want to make your first EP and you have no experience, that's totally fine. You are still eligible to apply. You just do need to provide us with proof of Canadian citizenship, because of course we're Canadian and we only fund Canadian people and costs.
On. So yeah, here's one where some of these changes we're talking about are going to come into effect. So even if you are somewhat familiar with Factor or a previous user, this is definitely going to be relevant to you. So the quick rundown before I let Karina take over are the 3 different types of profiles that you'll need to submit an application. So there's the user profile, the applicant profile, and the artist profile. And here is how those differ. We'll start with the basic user profile. Karina, if you please.
So user profile, unfortunately, needs a more simple name. Instead of user profile, it's really just a login like you would have at any other website. So it's email and password. That's actually it. It does ask you some demographic information that is optional for you to answer. It's just that we have started gathering some stats for Canadian heritage, as they've asked, but that's really it. You're going to put in your phone number and your address and your name, and that's all. This is also where you would upload your proof of Canadian citizenship. So once you've done it once, it just kind of sits there. So every person in your band does need to have one of these logins. Once they've created that, they never have to go back in if they're not going to be the applicant, so that's fine, but they do need to have a profile in the system, and they can be linked to as many other artist and applicant profiles as needed. So of course, if you're someone who plays in multiple bands, you just need this one login, and then you're kind of set and all your info is there, and it can be linked to whichever projects you're going to be a part of in the future. So to simplify it, it's a login, that's it.
Bang on. So then getting a bit more substantial is the applicant profile.
Yeah, so the applicant profile, you want to think of it as this is the person that is entering into the contract with Factor to receive the funding. This is the person whose name is on the bank account where the money is going. So that usually simplifies it a little bit. If you are an artist and do not have a corporation or a partnership, it's really just your name. So you're just going to choose which one of you is the most responsible and is going to take over the administration part of the grant writing. And then that's the name. That's going to be the applicant profile. In terms of what you need to fill out when you're creating this, it's also fairly basic, especially if you are not a company. If there is interest from whoever is listening about companies, we can talk about that after. But it'll just be like what is your business activity, in which case you would say artist, where are you located, home province, things like that. So not very detailed. It's like a one-page thing, and you submit it to us for for review. That's the thing that's changed, and I still have it like in my vocabulary. But anyways, you submit it to us, so we see everything. But again, it's probably would take you like 6 minutes to fill out. Oh, and what are these points about T4As? So we do give out T4As at the end of the year. And for example, the name of the applicant profile is who that would be given out to. So another consideration when you're choosing who's going to be responsible for this.
Bang on, and what a great reminder to file with the CRA before the end of the month. Yeah, feel free, keep the questions coming. We've got a few good ones in the queue here. One of which, though, I want to throw at you right now, and maybe just to avoid shuffling back in the slides. But for eligibility, is citizenship a requirement, or is Canadian residency acceptable?
Canadian residency is acceptable, yeah.
Bam, shout out Irish, boss. All right, and then yeah, we'll get back here. The third of the three profiles, and this one, well, I guess I'll let Karina explain how it's relevant to your various applications and various programs, but the artist profile and more specifically the ranking system.
Right. Do you want me to talk about that here or after? About the rating?
Oh yeah, let's save that one. You're right, we've got that slide coming up shortly. So just the basic gist of the profile, and then we'll open up to a few questions.
Sure. So artist profile is you as an artist. So it's your stage name, it's your normal name, that's cool too, band name, whatever that may be. This is what determines which programs you are eligible for. So the rating of this profile is what allows you to apply to certain things. It's fairly simple, again, especially if you are just starting out or if this is the first time that you're submitting a profile. You just need to complete the mandatory information section, which will ask you what genre of music you play, how many artist members you have in the band. You'll have to fill out their names and their role and position in the band. And this is where it's handy to have all those people already signed up with their user profiles, because you would just put in their email address, hit search, and it'll autofill everything because they're already in the system. And upload an artist bio. So that's something that just lets us see that you are in fact an actual artist with some kind of like story behind you. There's no wrong bio. It doesn't matter if it's 2 lines or 4 pages. It's whatever you want, but it does need to be up there. So those are the mandatory requirements: is filling in the artist members and uploading the bio, and that's pretty much it.
Bang on. Yeah, rolling on. So I mentioned we're going through a lot of the factual info here. So if there aren't a ton of questions, some of these are best reserved for the end. Yeah, a really quick one here from John. As far as definition of band, solo artist, duo, that's a catch-all term for basically anyone creating music. Is that correct?
Any artist, yep.
On. Yeah, and then the other one here, which is a good one, you had mentioned at the beginning that you are not an arts council. So I guess we'll get more into this in the second half, but maybe this is a good a time as any to stress it here. Like with arts councils, a lot of times they're looking to fund projects based on not the integrity, but like the concept, the art itself. Whereas like with Factor here, we're thinking more, like I remember from my time on a jury a little while ago, kind of thinking more with your business cap on than your artsy creative hat. Is that the case? Is it a pretty hard division line between the two?
I don't think the line is that hard. Your actual music and the songs and lyrics and composition and all of that is scored very, very highly. So that is one of the main considerations when the jurors are looking at these applications. So it's not that they only care about the business side of things. It just needs to be like a marketing plan or a business plan that's feasible and makes sense. It doesn't mean that you're going to take over the world. It could literally just be, I would like to tour Southwestern Ontario for 6 days, and that's great. That's a success, right? So that's you succeeding and accomplishing the goal that you set out for yourself, and the music holds up and allows you to do that. So the music does hold much more weight than anything else. And then, of course, your business plan or marketing plan does need to sort of substantiate that and back it up and have it all make sense cohesively. So it's not that hard of a line because we do care about the music. We're not going to fund someone who has terrible music. I mean, subjective, of course, but bad music and a great plan, well, it doesn't matter. That plan's not going to work if you don't have the actual music to back it up and to make it successful. So, yeah, I hope that answers it.
Totally, yes. Thank you for clarifying. Just a couple more here, 2 more questions about eligibility. There are more great ones and they're coming in fast, but a lot of these I think will either be touched on or answered completely in the next half, and if not, we'll serve these up for Karina in the next period. But really quickly, is there any age restriction on applicants?
No, but if you are under 18, we do have a legal guardian form that just needs to be filled out by somebody. But other than that, it does not affect your eligibility at all.
Right on. Okay. And then one more here. Yeah, you referred when we were walking through the different profiles about updating your profile. You'd mentioned something about how they don't need to be reviewed anymore, but it's still in the vocabulary. Can you just clarify? And sorry, she's got a good quote of you here that I don't specifically recall, but.
Sure. So you used to have to submit any new profiles to us, and our project coordinators would review them, as in they would read your artist bio to make sure it makes sense, check the artist members to see if those are real and you're all Canadian. They'd look at the applicant profile, does everything make sense, and then give you your rating. This would all take up to a maximum of 5 business days. So now I'm trying to get out of the habit of saying review. You are still filling in all of the same information. You are still submitting it to us, but we are not going to review all of that until much later down the line when if you are about to be offered funding. So this cuts down on work on our side in terms of, reviewing every single profile that comes in, which, as you can imagine, is quite a lot. And a lot of the time, I mean, sometimes it just won't really make a difference. And so instead of waiting 5 days for that rating, you're getting your rating immediately. So you're going to hit request review and it's going to come to us. And in 30 seconds, you're going to have a provisional rating that allows you to apply to that program right away. So there's no kind of waiting around to see, can I even apply or did I miss the profile deadline? Because that's what we used to have is, okay, you need to get your profiles in by this time. And then wait for your answer and then apply. At this point, if you are going to leave it last minute and you want to apply an hour before the deadline, more power to you. You can totally do that and you don't have to wait on anything from us.
Right on. One more just came in on eligibility. So you mentioned that if it is a band, that at least half of the members need to be Canadian citizens or residents. If the band is international, will those that aren't Canadian still need a user profile to take advantage?
Yes, they'll still need a profile. You just won't have any citizen or proof of Canadian residence or citizenship to upload, and that's fine. So when they look at the artist members, and there's 4 of you, and 2 of you are American and 2 are Canadian, we're only going to look at the 2 Canadians to make sure there's like they have something uploaded and it's correct, and then that's fine. So they do need a login, but they really just won't have to upload anything.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. This is we've got some great questions coming in. People taking advantage of the opportunity. Yeah, very grateful to you too, Karina. Let's roll on here. We'll get to a bunch of these afterwards. So yeah, here we go. We're talking programs, and the three we're going to focus on just because of their, I guess, general applicability, if that is a word. The Artist Development Program, which is juried. We've got a few of the upcoming deadlines here. A simple way, though, to remember these is basically the end, or is it the last Thursday of those respective months quarterly?
Yep.
Bingo. Okay, and so they're the same for artist development and juried sound recording. Obviously a juried one. And then the showcase program, which is part of the live performance, has a rolling deadline. So basically this one you can apply for ahead of any industry showcase opportunity. We'll get into the definition of what that is and what it's about very shortly. But yes, the very popular, very popular artist development program. Will you walk us through these?
Yes. Okay, artist development. So this one, for anybody who maybe is a little bit more familiar with Factor from the older days, replaced the demo program, which was $1,500, and we forced you to make a demo with it. So now this is its replacement, artist development. It's a $2,000 grant, and you can do whatever you want with it, pretty much. So any activities, like it lists here, sound recording, touring, showcasing, video production, marketing, promo, anything that makes sense for your career and that you think is going to help move you forward in some way, is pretty much eligible. So you do need to, at the end, provide us with an unreleased track, but it does not matter if you used any of this money to make that track. So if you have one lying around that's like pretty okay and you've never released it, that could be your example. Even if maybe you did, you took this money and you only toured with it, we don't really care. So it's more because the government would like us to pump out sound recordings. So we need to have that be part of the completion aspect of it. But what you actually do during this year doesn't matter. So it's fairly open, but there's no extensions, for example. So you're going to apply on whatever, January 1. Your artist development year starts, when does it start? It starts the moment you get accepted. So say you get funded, it's 12 months from that date. You can do all of this stuff and spend all of that money, and then you do your completion at the end, and that's kind of it. So very open. If you have specific questions about what is funded and what isn't, I guess hit me up. But it is, it kind of covers everything. And the point here about 75% of your total costs, most Factor programs are at maximum 75%. So yes, to receive the full two, you do need to spend $2,667 and prove those expenses at the end of the year so that you can get the full amount from us.
Right on. Okay. So yeah, next the bigger one, a little fiercer competition, but absolutely vital to the industry. And I guess it's worth pointing out, I mean, you disclose the information of who gets funded publicly, but some folks would be surprised to see, you know, a lot of the top touring acts in Canada are still taking advantage of this service.
Yeah.
So you are in very good company. But yeah, here we go. Let's talk about the big guy here.
So JSR, juried sound recording, definitely very competitive. Both of those programs are. This one is open only to general artists and artists two. I guess I didn't mention the other one, but pretty much same. It's just general artists and two that can apply. There's two tiers. So if you're a general artist, you can get up to a maximum of $47,500. And there is a breakdown in the program guidelines that talks about how much of that you can spend in certain components. So to put it kind of in short, to give you an idea of how that usually looks, $10,000 is the maximum that you can spend in sound recording. So to actually make the album, mastering, mixing, whatever goes into that, maximum of $10K, it could be a minimum of $500. Doesn't matter. It's up to you what you do with that, but there needs to be some costs claimed in the sound recording for it to be an eligible project. Beyond that, you can spend across marketing, video, tour, showcase, and radio marketing, however you wish. And then the extra money, the reason this number is so high, this used to only be a $30,000 program, is because we have extra money for international touring. So there's a certain amount that you can take advantage of if you are going to tour or showcase internationally only. If you're not, then that money is kind of not there for you. So the point is to get people out of Canada and out in the world and doing things that are not just in our own backyard. And then the breakdown is the same for artists too. I guess they have the 15K maximum for recording, but yeah, same deal there. 75% of total costs, so you do need to spend 25% of your own. And you can do all of the things and all the components. So sound recording, video production, even lyric videos are part of that. That's fine. Any kind of marketing and promo, any tours, any showcases, and you don't have to do all of those things. If you want to put all of your money into only sound recording and tour, and you don't want to do anything else with that, that's fine. That money is sort of earmarked for you once you get accepted and put off to the side, and you can choose to spend all of it or half of it, or it's very flexible.
Yeah, right on. Am I right then that the idea of funding the majority of, but not all of the project, is the idea behind that essentially so that the artist is still like somewhat invested in this and thus more likely to see the project through to completion, etc.?
Yes. Most agencies and granting foundations don't fund 100%, or it's rare, I think, to find 100%. And that definitely is part of it. So if you're gonna, we're gonna give you free money, we want to know that you are also invested in your own career and do have something of your own to put into it as well. Or else you could just, take this 47.5 and try a little experiment because you happen to be a good musician, and then drop it and not do anything with it, right? So there does need to be a little bit of an investment there.
Right on. Yeah, so we've talked about 2 jury programs. Oh, sorry, we've got a few to talk about because this is such a big one. We might as well walk through what people will need to submit just to get the wheels turning because, and maybe this didn't need to be said, but the further ahead of the deadline, the quicker you get your ducks in a row for this, the better. I remember Heather Ostertag probably a decade ago just stressing so hard that, if you're trying to apply anywhere close to the deadline, and even say if the website crashes or something, that's on you. So yeah, we want to get you prepped. We want to maximize the success of your application. So yeah, let's talk about the different components that go into this submission for JSR.
Yeah, and that definitely still rings true. If you leave it to the last minute, you're gonna have a hard time because it's gonna be really slow. So do keep that in mind. So what goes into your submission? You're gonna fill out, it's gonna be a little window that has different tabs. It's gonna ask you, okay, what are your goals and results? So why do you need this money? What are you doing with it? What's your plan? When are you gonna start recording? There does need to be a date in there. Of course, things are subject to change and we understand that, but you need to have some kind of idea of when you are going to start recording, because if you tell me in 3 years, well, this is not the time for you to apply. You do need to submit 2 assessment tracks, so they need to be unreleased MP3s. They don't have to be new, but just unreleased and of somewhat okay quality. It just means, like, think about a juror listening to your song and giving it a fair chance, right? So you want to put your best foot forward, provide a song or 2 songs that best kind of exemplify who you are as an artist. So out of your 6-song EP, maybe pick the one that's going to be the single, or the one that is a little bit more appealing to a wider audience, just for the sake of increasing your chances of whichever jurors you get actually liking your music. Because if it's like super out there and doesn't really make sense for the genre, it's just not going to be a good representation. You are going to have to kind of describe what you would do to change those assessment tracks if you receive funding, right? So it's like showing us, I have these 2 songs, they're kind of demos, they're not good quality. These are the songs that I'm going to re-record and properly mix and properly get mastered to put on the album, and these are the things that I'm going to do differently. That doesn't have a huge weight necessarily, but we do need to see that you're improving something. You're not just have everything already ready to go. And then the marketing plan is, all of this is mandatory, but the marketing plan is the other really, really big chunk that the jurors care about a lot. So we do have a guide on our website that kind of goes through all the different sections and subheadings of a marketing plan and what they're looking for. So it covers all the kind of basic, where are you releasing this? Do you have a distributor? What's the team? Do you have a publicist? Where are you recording? How? Like, who's your target market? All of that fun marketing stuff. So all of that needs to make sense, be feasible. and realistic, and come together to sort of provide you, like that marketing plan should be the way that you get those expected results and goals that you talk about in the beginning of your application. And then a current artist bio, which could just be the same thing that you uploaded to your artist profile.
Right on. nwcwebinars.com, a great one about artist bios, whether you're wanting to write it yourself or have someone else, plenty of info in there for you. Shameless plug. And to where I was trying to jump the gun to earlier, the showcase component. So this is part of the bigger live performance program. And again, being one of the 3 most popular programs, we're going to break this one down. But again, you can go to the site for more on live performance program in general. Yeah, tell us about this one. This is a really cool initiative.
Yeah. So the live performance program has 2 components to it. One is Showcase, and this is the one that is accessible by artists rated general, whereas Tour Support is for artists 2 and up. So what you get is, it's a subsidy, so it's up to 75,000, Lord, 7,500 per artist per year. And again, there's the breakdown with the international. So 5K can be spent on domestic, and then you can spend an extra 7.5 on international. So if you're not going to be touring or showcasing internationally, the maximum that you can get is 5,000. So it covers, you know, hotel and travel and musicians, no, not musicians fees, like eligible travelers that are going with you to play for recognized showcases. So this means that you need to be invited to an industry showcase. It's not just playing a club in Germany because you want to go play it. It's like being invited to South by and going there, or Reeperbahn, or something where your audience is music industry people, and not just the general public.
Bingo, CMW right around the corner.
CMW,
yeah, so then again, breaking down the different things you'll need to have in place to be eligible for and apply for this one. Yeah, a few bullets here to go.
You have to show us the invitation that you got from the showcase. And you do need to have either a current release, which I mean is no more than 24 months prior to when you submit. So even current could be realistically 2 years old, or something upcoming that you're showcasing. So upcoming within the next 6 months. And then you need to give us a list of the industry professionals that you are planning to meet with or have invited, and that will be seeing you play. Name, title, and company. So it's just to, again, show that you are traveling to this showcase with a business goal and plan in mind, because you want these specific people to see you play, because the goal is to get signed by this record label or whatever. So you can have different kinds of goals, but you do need to show us your plan for that whole trip.
Hang on. I'm thrilled and also a bit overwhelmed. There's just a ton of really, really good questions here, whereas I usually can come up with a logical, sensible way to ask them and maintain some kind of flow. We're all over the map here, but all really great. So Karina, I hope you're cool with us throwing a bunch of these at you in a few minutes.
Totally.
But yeah, before we get in, and this will answer a few people's questions here, but tips for success. This is probably what you've come for, because yeah, it can be overwhelming, all the different funding opportunities that are available and all of the different stipulations they have, and then the feedback that you get from the jurors, you know, when you're trying to, whether or not you're successful, but trying to refine your approach for the next time. Here are the goods, direct from the source. And yeah, like we say here, Karina and company were kind enough to share some tips that are going to be relevant to you beyond just applying for Factor, whether it's your Provincial Music Industry Association, or a lot of these other opportunities that we're lucky to have up here in Canada. But let's go. Some general ones for any of Factor's programs. Yeah, let's start it here. Understand your funder, and you've taken the first step to success by joining us for this one on that.
Yeah.
Congrats.
And that part definitely speaks to me telling you that we're not an arts council. So that's it. That's all you need to know to understand us, is cater to your audience pretty much. You'll never know which jurors you're going to get. They are anonymous, so you will never even find out afterwards. So you have to sort of generalize it a little bit. And I think that's really it for understand your funder. Prepare early, of course. And if it is your first time and you haven't really looked at the application process much, or you're not sure, give yourself time to, like point number 3 says, talk to your PC, call them and email them and be in touch with them. That's literally what their job is and what they're there for. So when you have very specific questions about something, call them up, and they're, we're there Monday to Friday, answer those questions. So give yourself the time to get those questions answered, and either make edits or change or update your application accordingly, and still submit it on time, of course. Yeah, so if you do have a grant writer, which I feel like for a first time maybe is not necessary, but you never know. It's up to you. Definitely look at it, be aware of what's going in there, because it is your name and your artist or band or whatever it might be on the line there, and you need to be fully aware of what goals and expectations you have written out, or what you're working towards, or what songs you've submitted. So don't be left in the dark. One of our rules is we do not get involved in third-party disputes. So if things go weird and something happened with your grant writer, Factor cannot help you, because it is your responsibility to be aware of what's happening. So for previous recipients, everything is public in terms of which program, and I think it says how much money, and which artist is being funded, and that gets updated semi-regularly, automatically for our system on our website under recipients. So you can search for, to see who got the JSRs and who got which projects. So, or if you have buddies or friends and you know some of those artists and you want to reach out to them, I think people are always pretty happy to share some tips for success. And understand public funding policy. So that, I think, just sort of speaks to, again, with the funding 75%, make sure you're aware of how much money we are giving you and how much you need to put in. Be aware of which costs are eligible and which ones are not. Like, you can't submit alcohol receipts to us or things like that. So know ahead of time how we function and what our policies are before you end up in a situation where you have spent money on things that you shouldn't have or are not eligible, and then we're going to have to reduce your offer, and we don't want to do that, and you don't want that. So definitely be very well informed before you spend anything.
All great tips. Yeah, so here are a few that are a bit more specific to Factor, and even more specifically, the 2 of the 3 juried programs, or the 2 of the 3 ones that we've talked about that are juried. Yeah, propose plans that are specific and achievable. That makes sense to me.
So mention that, of course. Make sure it's something that's realistic, has a high likelihood of success, and know that if you submit a marketing plan that is not realistic, so say you're not doing any of these things, it shows the jurors that you're not really aware of the industry and the space that you're working in and what you're doing. So show your industry chops by showing them that you have a realistic plan. Proofread, of course, that's, kind of an obvious one. Everyone should always proofread. Don't send in typos. It's not going to make or break your application, honestly, but nobody likes that. Consider your readers. I think that's sort of like the consider your funder, because you don't know who your jurors are going to be necessarily. But again, keep it, I don't want to use the word commercial. It's such a unlikable word, I'm aware. But like I said, make it something that is going to appeal to a wider audience, and choose your genre wisely. That's definitely a big one, because when you submit your application for either JSR or AD, and you pick what genre you're in, so you're going to say pop, your application is only going to be shown to jurors that have said that their expertise is in pop. So you can choose a different genre for your project than you have chosen in your artist bio. So if that specific album, for example, is a little bit of, you've strayed from your original rock roots and now it's a little bit more poppy, don't just stick with rock because you consider yourself a rock band. Think of that specific project and that specific song and the music that you've submitted, and cater it or pick the genre based on which industry experts you want listening to that. That makes a really big difference. Of course, it's pretty obvious why it's split up into genres. You don't want like a hip hop expert listening to a classical music submission. So it just makes sense to know who's going to be listening to it and make sure that the genre really does match up, because there's going to be a higher chance that they're going to get it versus if the genres don't make sense and they're like, I can't judge this accurately. Request the juror comments. Yeah, so we do give out the juror comments. To be honest, some jurors are better at leaving comments than others. We do try very hard on our end to encourage them to leave constructive criticism and not just like, I don't like this song, because that doesn't help anybody. And they're always available for you. So when you get your either you're a success email or unfortunately rejection email, you just have to contact your PC and say, hey, can I see the comments? And I can tell you for sure that people who look at the comments, take them not to heart, but absorb them and understand them and implement those changes, do better the next time, because as much as you're not going to get the same juror again, you are going to probably see a certain theme or something like a thread that is common amongst all your comments, which means, you know, it's probably true. So as much as people don't like criticism, well, even if you put the word constructive in front of it, it's for a reason, and that's what the juror is there for. And if they've left a comment, it means they feel this way, and I doubt that they're the only one. So I would say take them seriously, don't shy away from them. I was always the person who didn't want to look at her bank account, because if I don't look at it, that means it's probably okay. That's not the case. Look at it and feel the pain if you didn't get a favorable outcome, and then just make your next application stronger. So I really can't stress that enough. I think that's a really big thing, and not enough people do ask for their comments. That leads into keep trying. It is very, very competitive, like insanely competitive, and it's only gotten more so over the years. We get 11 to 1,200 applications amongst the two programs per deadline. And our budget, is not exactly growing. It is staying the same. So more people apply. We still have the same amount of money. We fund less projects. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the reality. So we fund between 10 and 15%. It's not a very high number. So sometimes you can be a point away. You got an 85.94, and the threshold cutoff for the budget was 85.95. This literally happens. People get very upset about it. I don't blame them at all, but it means that your project obviously was very good and very worth funding, and it doesn't mean that you didn't deserve that money, but the line has to be drawn somewhere. So keep in mind that a high score means the more you try, chances are you will get it. It always depends on who else is in that specific juror pool, like project pool, in that deadline. Maybe you just had some really stiff competition, but the next time your 85.95 is going to be way ahead of the pack. So it always changes. There's no scoring threshold. It's just budget, and it just depends on how everybody else did as well. So definitely don't give up. Do it every single round if you can.
Awesome. And then, yeah, a few of the questions have to do with after projects have been approved or through to completion. So we'll get to those that we don't cover here, but some general ones just to help keep things as painless on you and I guess Karina and her fine colleagues as well. Yeah, walk us through this one, and then we are almost at question time.
Okay. So once you've been funded, definitely keep track of all of your receipts, all your spending, anywhere any of that money went. We do have like a cash payment policy. I don't remember it off by heart. It's like if it's under 500, but make sure you have this kind of receipt, blah, blah, blah. But either way, avoid using it. It just makes things more complicated. We understand that sometimes it's impossible to avoid. So we do have some kind of workaround there, but try to keep it minimum. So gas receipts, like anything from the hotel. And another big part of that is proof of payment. So a receipt is a receipt. That just shows me that you spent money on something. That's great, but how do I know how you paid for it or that it was you that paid for it? So you do have to, with your receipts, also show proof of payment. So if you used your Visa or your credit card and you paid for a bunch of stuff, you don't need to show us your whole credit card statement. You can black out whatever you got to black out, but you do need to show us the lines where the corresponding amount with the receipt makes sense and connects you to your credit card. So this is the least fun. Nobody likes this. It's just how the policy is. And we do need to keep track of the spending. So just be meticulous about it. And it's going to be much easier for you at the end of the day if you know this ahead of time instead of scrambling at the end and trying to find all your receipts for things that you didn't know you needed receipts for. Assume you need a receipt for literally every single thing, and have those things on hand. So that'll make your whole completion process much, much easier. The logo and acknowledgement thing, that's a big part of my job specifically, is making sure people are adhering to that. So again, this comes down from Canadian Heritage. We do have a logo guide that will be emailed to you directly once you get an offer of funding. So you're well aware ahead of time of all of the acknowledgement you need to make. So really it's the Canada logo and the factor logo. There's different rules in terms of color and where they can be placed and not placed. It's all laid out there for you. So again, make sure you know that before you before you press all those records and make the posters and whatever. And if you're ever unsure, definitely send it to your project coordinator ahead of time so that they can say yes or no before it's too late. I feel like maybe someone might ask, well, what if I already did and I did it wrong? We're never going to make you like get rid of that product. That's crazy. But if you were to do a second pressing, for example, then we would expect that to be updated and changed. So people make mistakes, it's fine, move forward with it. But if we see it, we will probably reach out to you and say, hey, next time, or if you do a round of these, make sure that it gets fixed. And same with videos. That's one that people miss quite a lot. If you have a factor funded video, you do need to also include those credits at the end. Just a quick flash of that logo with the thing. I know it's very uncool, but it's just part of it, and you don't want us to tell you, hey, you need to take your video down and change it after you've gotten a bunch of views on it, because you lose them. And if plans change, contact your PC. Yeah, so just keep in constant touch with them. Like I said, that's what they're there for every single question, pre, post, during, after, doesn't matter. Especially with the completion, it's better to overly keep them in the loop than to not tell them something, assuming it's okay, and then find out at the end that it's not okay. It's like, even if it's just an email and say, hey, I'm doing this instead of this because something has differed from the application that you've submitted, a quick, yep, you're good to go, and then and you don't have to worry about it and be unpleasantly surprised at the end of your project.
Awesome. Karina, people are already, these typically come when I start to wrap things up, but people are already saying thank you for the tips, for the time and everything. And yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to have you. We've got a ton, like I've said, great questions here. I think the best approach will be for me to just kind of rhyme them off at you if you're comfortable for that, the fast money round.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, some might even seem trivial, but we want to give you the info, and let's jump into it. This is awesome. So yeah, one of strays a bit from what we've covered, but is there funding available to companies, music industry companies, without 2 years of operating history?
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about companies. No. If you want fast money, no. You need to be in business for at least 2 years, or at least since you got incorporated. I want to say no because those are technically our rules, but call the office and talk to somebody and make your profiles and get to that point, because if anything, you can have your profile there and you can keep it updated, and once you do reach a point, then you might be eligible. So if you're a company, I highly suggest asking, even if you know the answer is no, because it's just better to start that relationship and talk to us ahead of time than just hearing me say no and then not even bothering. I would say it's worth a chat. Even come in for a meeting. I think that's a good idea. So don't avoid us, but technically you do need to have been in business for 2 years.
Nice. Yeah, just a quick bit of info here too. Karina's agreed to stay a little past the hour here, which is great, but we're going to keep it to 1/4 past. I think we should be able to get through everything. I just say, though, there's a few folks that have several questions. If we don't get to it in the session, though, we will share our contact info afterwards.
Yep. Is that me?
No, that's me, and I'm sorry that's so unprofessional, but I'm going to be an uncle soon. This is great news.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, oh, good vibes all around. Yeah, so if your project's funded, half the band has to be Canadian residents, but as far as the expenses collaborating with US creators, like say for video shoots, recording, etc., are there any restrictions as to where internationally that money gets allocated?
Yes, so we will not recognize costs that are not being paid out to Canadian companies.
Right on. Okay.
You can,
Let's see here. Um, are there any, and actually this question's come up a few times in different iterations, so I'll try and make it catch-all. Specific demographics like Francophone artists, Indigenous artists, are there any programs or parts of programs specifically tailored to these groups, or does that get identified in the genre stage in some cases?
yes, so it does get identified in the genre stage. I mean, Indigenous artists are not necessarily making one specific genre of music.
Mhm.
So I think that's something that we're also sort of working on. We did start a new outreach program, and we're kind of figuring out, okay, how can we sort of update certain programs for this exact purpose? But right now, there is not necessarily a difference. Everyone is applying to the same thing. For francophone artists, you cannot apply to Factor if your lyrics are more or are 50% in French. So you do need to sing in English or any other language, doesn't matter what it is, but just not French, because we have a French counterpart in Quebec called Musique Action, and they fund the francophone artists. So if your lyrics are like if you have 2 French songs and 8 are English, great, you can apply to Factor. But if it's majority French, then you need to apply to Musique Action.
Hang on. Okay, someone's wondering, they're not a performer, but a composer registered with SOCAN and are looking to become their own publisher, so I guess a publishing company, and also, I guess, help other artists in similar situations. So basically kind of starting your own business. What is your profile then?
Um, So I guess it depends what are you looking for funding for. If it's you would like to be a publisher, so a music publisher, and that's your business now, and you're going to start working on it, and you're going to get your roster going and stuff. That means you'd be applying to business development, business travel. It's support for eligible music companies. So at that point, you do need to make sure that you're getting a company rating. Um, if you do multiple things, you can choose multiple business activities under one profile. So there's a lot of people who are songwriters and artists and do have their PRO number and stuff. So you would just pick which one's your primary one, and then you would have a secondary one, and you would get all the ratings you need in one profile. So you just have to let us know, what do you want? Like, what are you looking for funding for? This is what I'd like ratings for, and then it can be multiple in one profile. So you don't need to make different profiles.
Right. Yeah, maybe this differs based on the program, but are there restrictions on the time frame from application to completion in any case?
Yes, so you do get completion deadlines automatically set for you once you reach so there's certain milestones that your PC will walk you through, that you need to confirm your release date and when are you finishing your tour, etc. So for example, a JSR project, I think you have 2 years to complete from the day that you receive your offer. Extensions are available, so that usually it can be pushed for more than 2 years. But generally, yeah, that is your kind of last day that you would have eligible expenses. Once you pass that, we're going to hound you to wrap it up.
Despite everyone's best attempts, I don't think we're going to stump her. Just a quick clarification here. What was the difference in terms of ranking between general artists and artist 2?
Yeah, this is such a huge point that we didn't talk about. The rating. So general artist is what 95% of all of the artists in our system are rated. So this just means you exist and you're Canadian and you're an artist. That's it. So you get your general rating, and that allows you to apply to the programs we talked about here. To get up to an artist 2 or an artist 3, so those 2 other distinctions, that there's a section of the profile called qualifying criteria. So this covers things like sync licenses, streaming numbers, social media numbers, live performance, album sales, all of that stuff. So those all have different weights that we consider. So you're going to fill in what's going on with you and how your career's going. And then there's twice a year where we review everything. So at the end of August, that one is by request only. So if you're like, wow, I've had a great year and I've done all these things and I feel like I might be able to make it up into Artist 2, you're going to click on that request review button again, and PC is going to look at it and it'll kind of get sorted. So you have the chance to move up in rating. At the end of February, it's not by request, it's just everybody, every applicant profile, every artist profile gets pulled and re-reviewed. So a good place to go on our website under how to apply, there's a section called artist ratings and profiles or something like that. And it gives you, we update this every 6 months after each review period, where it sort of gives you it's not an average, but it's a lower end numbers of the current artists in our system and where they're at in those categories. So for streams, it'll say 2 million for artist 2 and 3 million for artist 3. That's just an example. I have no idea what it is right now. And that's going to change every time. So if you're going to look at those numbers and you're like, wow, I'm pretty much there, like my numbers are lining up with what's here, I suggest you update it and you go into your profile and request and try to get your higher rating. If you're nowhere near that, I wouldn't worry about it right now because it's just kind of a waste of your time. So that's a good place to go and constantly keep an eye on those numbers to see when you're reaching that kind of level. And then of course, once you get to Artist 2, you just have a new, like in JSR, you have an extra 10K to spend on that project. And you have access to live performance, for example, like tour support. So you just have a new kind of level of programs that's available to you.
Right on. Yeah, a few more kind of quick ones to bang off before getting to some more grandiose type responses. For international touring allotment, and I guess whether that's underneath the showcase heading or for folks with the higher rankings, the tour support grants, but does the international touring allotment include the cost of visa applications?
Yes, you can claim those. The only thing you can't claim is like if you are getting the CFM or AFM or whatever they're called, CFM, to write it for you, or so if you're hiring anyone to kind of do the admin part for you, you cannot claim that cost, but you can claim the cost of the permit, the visa.
Got it. Can tour money or anything under the live performance program, can that be used to pay additional musicians for the showcase/tour?
Like session musicians?
Exactly.
Yes, I believe so. I'm just double checking. But yeah, session music. There is a cap. I don't remember what it is exactly now. It's in the guidelines, but yes, I think you can. But there's a cap on that cost.
Okay. Going back to the point about submitting unreleased tracks, you said they don't need to be new but unreleased. Is there a strict definition on quote unquote unreleased?
Yeah, so unreleased means it was not put out to the public for sale. So if you had it up on your Bandcamp for 2 months and no one bought it, then you took it down, that's fine. If it's on iTunes and it's available and people can purchase it right now when you're submitting it, not okay. So even, yeah, say you want to use a track and it has been up somewhere, but you haven't sold anything or it was just up streaming, just take it down. Then we won't really know when you apply. So yeah, it just means, did anyone pay you for it? If yes, then, well, that's going to be considered released.
All right. Oh, Shelly, if you're still listening, you had a great question, and I replied, great question, we'll get to that in a second, and then it disappeared because I, quote unquote, responded. If you would please resubmit that with the wording, I'd love to put it in front of Karina. Here's one that's come in for several people. Would you be able to take advantage of the showcase program if you or someone on your team was staging what could be defined as an industry showcase for yourself? So say an album release party where the majority of your guest list is targeted industry pros.
No.
Okay. Great question though, folks. I was very curious about that one myself. Yeah, multiple. Let's see here. Yeah, someone's wondering about the process of becoming a juror, or maybe more simply put, how does Factor choose its jurors?
Right, so you can apply to be a juror. There's a section of our website that kind of goes over that. You fill out a little form that you send to our jury supervisor. we're always looking for more jurors, especially in diverse genres where we might have a bit of a lack. We're looking for a minimum of 5 years of some kind of industry experience. So, I mean, if you're an artist, what have you been doing for those 5 years? Or, it just sort of depends. Does it make sense for you to be currently adjudicating applications? So it's really just that. And again, you have to be Canadian, and you have to have that expertise needs to be in a specific genre. That's kind of it. So it's not too difficult as long as you are currently active, because then, of course, right, and I should say 5 years, like current 5 years, not that 30 years ago you did this thing for a little bit and now you just want to do it on the side. We're not gonna, that you probably won't get accepted. Yeah, but I can definitely send to Andrew to send to you guys, or I guess just tell you to go to the website to contact our jury supervisor, because that's jury recruitment is definitely a big thing for us. So I'm happy to hear if people are interested.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, we've got a few more in the queue. I think we can get them done in 5 minutes, but I'm going to cut it off after what's there unless someone's got a great follow-up kind of thing. So yeah, here's one. We've got an artist, every time that she's submitted an application for both AD and JSR, the feedback that comes back has been varied and subjective from jurors, basically just wondering about like if jurors are trained or like what kind of information they get as far as how to adjudicate and what kind of feedback folks are after.
Right. I'm sorry.
And she's been both successful and unsuccessful at different points, just to be clear.
Yeah, so that's definitely frustrating. They do get training, kind of intro training when they're first accepted. Our jury supervisor goes over things with them. There is a kind of a contract and guideline that they have to go by. So they are trained to the best of our ability, but of course people are, make subjective calls like that. So we also try to encourage them to not do things like that. And we do get rid of, well, one, if you feel that way about comments, tell your PC, because then it's going to go back to the jury supervisor. So if this one specific juror has like 5 different projects coming back being like, hey, this was not great, or it was like shitty advice and I didn't think it was good, we can also kick jurors out if they're not providing the service that they should be providing. So we do want to know about those instances. And we do also not consider the score of a juror who may have been an outlier. So if everybody gave you a 90 and said great things, and this one person gave you a 55 and just said he hated it, I don't know why I said they hated it, then that's not going to be counted, and we are going to have a little chat with that person to say, hey, what's going on, what happened here, right? Because it obviously doesn't really make sense. So we do want to hear about these instances. Our jury supervisor should know. He does keep track of these things, and there are things that do happen as sort of consequences if it's something that is continuous and keeps happening. Other than that, yeah, like with a training, when we have 800 or so jurors, it's hard to really give every single one of them proper training. They're all across the country, so they do get some preliminary advice and guidance, but that's about all we can do.
Awesome. A few quick ones, almost yes or no. Does your location matter? For example, are there quotas for certain parts of the country, etc.?
No. So we do like to, no, it doesn't matter.
All right. Oh, that one's not an easy bang off. Let's see. Does Factor offer samples of marketing plans, what a successful or ideal marketing plan might look like?
So we do not currently have that. We do have our marketing plan guide that just gives you like basic info, but we don't have examples of real life ones. I would say just Google it, but unfortunately these are private things, so we can't put them out into the world. And I don't think that we have intention of doing that anytime soon. So I would say use the guide, talk to your friends, use the internet, and that's about it.
Awesome. If I can tack onto that, your Provincial Music Industry Association too is a great resource for that kind of thing. If they can't provide you an example, I know that they can get very, very, very specific and helpful.
They definitely have. I do want to mention they're a great resource if you don't live in Ontario and can't actually come see us at our office. They are in every province, and we have recs there that I communicate with very regularly to keep them updated. So And they can spend more time, right? They can sit down with you for an hour and go over something, whereas that's not a luxury that we have due to our limited resources. But definitely, if you're not in Ontario, do go see your provincial organizations.
Right. The MP3 submission, will you accept, if it's legally licensed, cover material?
I do not recommend submitting covers at all. No juror is going to like it or want it, and we don't fund covers. So steer away from that completely.
All right. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to word this a bit. Oh, are you only competing within your artist rating category or genre? Like, is there certain successful applications allotted by genre?
No, not currently. This is something that we talk about and see the issue with. Currently, no, you are competing. Like in JSR, it's going to be artist twos and general artists. And there is no specific allotment for each genre, so it's just kind of a big pool. But that being said, I do want you to know that it is in talks and on our minds, and to sort of make that a little bit more fair, because of course in general we're going to get like 500 pop applications and 7 jazz applications, right? There is a very unfair distribution of just what comes in. So it's on our minds.
Got it. But yeah, back to the cover. If you are successful for, say, JSR, and your album was going to include a cover among others, is that legit?
Yeah, that's fine. So you can check both in the guidelines and our business policies. You need to meet Maple standards, which is basic for any Canadian for CanCon. But for us specifically, so music, artist, production, and lyrics, it needs to be like at least 2, and then I don't know, it's like a weird breakdown. But anyways, if you have an EP and 1 is a cover, but you're singing it and you're Canadian, then great, that's fine. So as long as the majority is not.
All right. Would Factor, do you have preferred grant writers, or would anyone on your team ever suggest a grant writer?
They shouldn't. We do not have preferred grant writers. We don't really endorse any of them. If you're gonna ask like me personally, I would say don't bother. But there is no one. So I would say just talk to friends and whoever else is around to see who they use. But we definitely do not give out any names or endorse one person over another.
Okay, we're very close to the end, and I said 15 minutes, I won't keep you past 20. When speaking, yeah, as far as the different costs underneath any of the program umbrellas, is HST included or excluded?
So you cannot claim HST. So when you're doing your completion, you have to leave the tax out.
Bingo, very helpful. Whether it's a remix album or say like a re-recorded, remastered album, are there programs tailored to that type of recording?
No, it should be original. No, you cannot.
Right. 2 great ones here to end us off. And again, thanks everyone for all the kind comments. We'll be, of course, sharing that with Karina and the fine folks at Factor. If you apply, say it's your second, third, etc., time applying, does the jury have the opportunity to see previous jurors' comments or results from past projects?
No. They also won't know if you've ever applied again. So it's just like a fresh application, unless they just happen to also be your juror and they remembered you. There's your history does not matter. It does not influence your submission.
Bingo. And then the last one here, which I think is a great question. Thank you to everybody. But yeah, basically just wondering, and you can keep this as basic as you'd like, but just what the jury environment looks like, or rather how the jurors are experiencing / reviewing the submissions.
Okay, like what they see, I guess, like what.
Well, I think it's more like, are we talking 4 or 5 people together in a dark room together, or right. Is it on remotely, etc.?
Yeah, so it's online, it's all remote, everyone does it from wherever they want. They would log into the portal in a similar way that you would when you apply. And we try to, in terms of amount of jurors, of course, it depends on how many people opt in for that round to participate. So we try to get as many people per application, of course, for varying comments. It usually ends up around 6 or 7 per application. And they just kind of fill it out. So they're going to see the bio you submitted and the marketing plan. They're going to listen to the music, and they just fill everything out remotely and submit it. So that's sort of it. Nobody talks to each other about it. They shouldn't be talking to each other about it. And everything kind of stays anonymous. And again, it's like, obviously in your marketing plan at some point, it's going to be obvious who you are, but they do try to, they don't see your artist profile, for example. So we're just trying to sort of limit bias as much as possible, even though usually it's pretty clear who the person is. Yeah, so I guess I hope that sort of answers that. Hello?
Sorry, I was muted there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. musicbooksplus.com/webinars. There are a few of the titles that we've highlighted. If you use the code webinars, you're going to be entitled to a 10% discount on anything there. And there are also tips to make the most of your next webinar experience. Yeah, a huge thanks to Karina for the time and the very valuable information. Thank you for joining us for the engagement. We are going to send off an email, I think exactly 24 hours from now, with a link to where you can access this recording. Feel free to share it around with anyone you might think would get some value out of this, which I actually can think about half a dozen that I'm going to first thing tomorrow. Hey. Oh boy, yeah, plenty of great feedback here. We'll share that with Karina. Karina, I'm going to lose you shortly. So again, a very, very genuine and heartfelt thank you. This has been fantastic.
And a genuine thank you for asking me to do this. And I hope it was helpful for some people.
We know that for a fact. All right, yeah, take care, everybody. Our next session, nwcwebinars.com. You can actually register now if you'd like. We're going to have a couple of folks from SOCAN joining us, and sort of like we did today, offer an overview of what SOCAN's all about, but then get into how you can make sure that every dollar you're entitled to is going into your pocket. That's May 31st. Join us for that. And yeah, this has been fantastic. We're signing off. Take care.
Bye.